In a small, weather-beaten house on the outskirts of town, Daniel lived a life of quiet struggle. His home, though filled with love and resilience, stood in stark contrast to the pristine mansions of his affluent classmates. Each morning, Daniel walked to school with shoes that had seen better days and a backpack that barely held together, yet his spirit remained unbroken. At school, the hallways echoed with laughter and whispers, but not the kind that brought joy. Daniel, with his patched-up clothes and determined eyes, was an easy target for those who measured worth by material possessions. Tyler, the school's golden boy, with his designer clothes and an entourage of admirers, found delight in making Daniel the butt of his cruel jokes. "Look who decided to grace us with his presence today. Beggar Daniel," Tyler sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. The hallway erupted in laughter, each jeer like a dagger to Daniel's heart. He clenched his worn books tighter, willing himself to disappear. On a particularly cold autumn morning, the air was thick with a crisp promise of winter. Daniel walked the familiar path to school, his breath visible in the chilly air. He kept his head down, hoping to avoid the inevitable confrontation. But Tyler, with his predatory instincts, spotted him immediately. "Hey Daniel, ever thought of taking a bath? You reek of poverty," Tyler taunted, his voice loud enough to attract a crowd. The laughter that followed was a cacophony of malice. Daniel's cheeks burned with shame, but he forced himself to meet Tyler's gaze, his eyes reflecting a storm of suppressed emotions. "One day, Tyler, you'll see me for who I truly am," Daniel whispered to himself, the words a fragile shield against the onslaught of mockery. He turned away, his steps heavy, his heart heavier. From a distance, Mrs. Taylor, a compassionate teacher, watched the scene unfold with a mix of sorrow and anger. She approached the group, her stern presence silencing the laughter. "Enough. Respect is not optional. Daniel deserves the same kindness and dignity as any of you," she reprimanded, her voice firm. She turned to Daniel, offering him a small, encouraging smile. "Keep your head high, Daniel. You are more than they can see," she said softly. Daniel nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the ground. During lunch, Daniel sought solace in a secluded corner of the schoolyard, under the shade of an ancient oak tree. There, he allowed the tears to flow, each drop a testament to the pain he carried. "One day, all of this will change," he vowed to himself, his voice trembling but resolute. "One day, they will see who I truly am." As the sun set, casting long shadows across the schoolyard, Daniel picked up a worn-out book and began to read. Each word was an escape, a promise of a better world, a silent pledge to himself that he would rise above his circumstances. And as he read, the tears dried, leaving behind a spark of determination in his eyes. As the shadows lengthened and the chill of the evening settled in, Daniel walked home, his mind still echoing with the day's humiliations. Yet, as he approached the modest house where he lived with his father, Michael, and younger sister, Lily, a sense of peace began to replace his sorrow. His family, though poor in material wealth, was rich in love and kindness. Michael, a man worn by years of hardship, met Daniel at the door with a warm smile. "Welcome home, son. How was school today?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern and love. Daniel, not wanting to burden his father, merely shrugged and forced a small smile. "It was okay, Dad," he replied softly. That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, their simple meal was filled with laughter and stories. Michael spoke of the time when he had been a boy, facing similar challenges, and how he had learned to find joy in the smallest of things. "We may not have much, but we have each other," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "And that, my dear children, is the greatest wealth of all." After dinner, Daniel and Lily helped their father with a small project they had been working on, repairing an old bicycle they had found discarded in an alley. It was a slow process, but it brought them together, each turn of the wrench a reminder of their shared resilience. On the weekends, Daniel and his family often volunteered at a local soup kitchen. Despite their own struggles, Michael had instilled in his children the importance of giving back. "When we help others, we help ourselves," he would say, his eyes bright with conviction. One cold Saturday morning, as they served hot meals to the homeless, Daniel noticed a frail, elderly man shivering in the corner. Without hesitation, he took off his own worn jacket and draped it over the man's shoulders. "Here, sir. This will keep you warm," he said with a gentle smile. The man looked up, his eyes brimming with gratitude. "Thank you, young man. Your kindness is a light in this dark world." Back at home that evening, as they sat by the small fire that crackled warmly in the hearth, Michael looked at his children with pride. "You did a good thing today, Daniel," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Never let the harshness of the world extinguish the kindness in your heart." Daniel nodded, feeling a sense of warmth and purpose. "I won't, Dad. I promise," he replied, his voice strong and determined. In that moment, surrounded by his family's love, he felt a surge of hope. Despite the challenges he faced at school, he knew that he had something far more valuable: the strength of character and the power of kindness. And with that, he vowed to rise above the cruelty and prove his worth, not just to himself, but to the world. As the night deepened and the stars shone brightly in the clear sky, Daniel lay in bed, his mind filled with dreams of a better future. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with his family by his side and his heart full of kindness, he felt ready to face whatever came his way. "One day," he whispered to himself, "I will make them see who I truly am." And with that, he drifted off to sleep, the seeds of kindness and determination taking root in his heart. As winter turned to spring, the chill in the air was replaced by a gentle warmth, but the schoolyard remained a cold place for Daniel. The taunts and jeers from his classmates, led by the relentless Henry, continued unabated. One day, as Daniel walked through the crowded halls, he overheard a conversation that would change everything. "Did you hear about Henry's dad?" whispered one student to another, their voices hushed but filled with intrigue. "Apparently, his business is in trouble. They're going to lose everything." Daniel paused, the words echoing in his mind. Henry, the very boy who tormented him daily, was facing his own struggles. A wave of empathy washed over Daniel, surprising him with its intensity. He realized that behind Henry's cruelty might be a heart weighed down by fear and insecurity. That afternoon, Daniel sat on his usual bench under the old oak tree, pondering what he had heard. His father's words echoed in his mind. "Kindness is a light in this dark world." With a deep breath, Daniel made a decision. He would not let bitterness take root in his heart. Instead, he would reach out, not with anger, but with understanding. The next day, during lunch, Daniel approached Henry, who was sitting alone for the first time Daniel could remember. "Hey, Henry," he began, his voice steady and calm. "I heard about your dad's business. I'm really sorry. I know how hard things can be." Henry looked up, his face a mask of surprise and confusion. "Why do you care?" he snapped, his voice laced with defensiveness. "Aren't you the one I've been making fun of all year?" Daniel nodded, unflinching. "Yes, you have. But that doesn't mean I can't care about what you're going through. My family has faced tough times too. I know it's not easy." For a moment, Henry's eyes softened, and the mask of arrogance slipped. "Why would you be nice to me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because kindness is powerful," Daniel replied, his eyes meeting Henry's with sincerity. "And because I believe that everyone deserves a chance to be better." Henry stared at Daniel, his expression a mix of shame and gratitude. "I don't deserve your kindness," he muttered. "We all make mistakes," Daniel said gently. "It's what we do after that matters." Over the following weeks, an unexpected friendship began to form. Henry, slowly but surely, started to change. The cruel taunts and mocking laughter ceased, replaced by a tentative respect. Daniel's kindness had planted a seed of transformation in Henry's heart. One afternoon, as they walked home from school together, Henry spoke up, his voice filled with a rare vulnerability. "You know, Daniel, I've been a real jerk. I'm sorry for everything." Daniel smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "I forgive you, Henry. We all have our battles. I'm just glad we can move forward." As they approached Daniel's house, Henry glanced around, taking in the modest surroundings. "Your place looks cozy," he said, struggling to find the right words. "It is," Daniel replied, his voice filled with pride. "It may not be much, but it's filled with love and kindness. And that's what matters most." Henry nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. "I think I'd like to visit sometime, if that's okay." "Of course," Daniel said, his smile widening. "You're always welcome here." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the city, Daniel felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. By extending kindness, he had not only transformed his own life, but had also begun to heal the wounds of another. And in that moment, he knew that his father's words were true. Kindness truly was a light in the dark world, capable of illuminating even the darkest hearts. And so, the seeds of kindness continued to grow, spreading their roots deep and wide, transforming lives and creating a ripple of change that would echo far beyond the small schoolyard where it all began. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing in Marcus's heart. As the sun rose, bathing the town in a warm golden light, Laura prepared herself for what she believed would be the happiest day of her life. Her dress, an elegant cascade of ivory lace, shimmered softly in the morning light, each stitch a symbol of her dreams and hopes. Laura's friends and family gathered around her, their faces glowing with joy and excitement. Laughter filled the room, mingling with the scent of fresh flowers and the soft strains of a violin playing in the background. Yet amidst this scene of happiness, an undercurrent of unease tugged at Laura's heart. She shook it off, attributing it to pre-wedding jitters. Meanwhile, Marcus was miles away, pacing his apartment with a phone in his hand and a heart heavy with guilt and fear. Bianca's revelation of her pregnancy had shattered his carefully constructed world. He knew he had to make a choice, and the weight of that decision bore down on him like a crushing wave. At the appointed hour, Laura stood in the antechamber of the chapel, her heart pounding with anticipation. The guests were seated, the flowers arranged, the minister waiting. But as the minutes ticked by, a sense of dread began to creep into the room. Whispers of concern floated through the air, and Laura's father, his face etched with worry, checked his watch repeatedly. Then, the phone rang. Laura's heart skipped a beat as she picked up the receiver, her hands trembling slightly. "Marcus," she whispered, hope and fear intertwined in her voice. "Laura, I'm so sorry," came Marcus's voice, thick with emotion. "I can't do this. I can't marry you. I love someone else, and she's pregnant with my child. We're leaving together. I'm so sorry. I wish you happiness, but my child won't grow up without a father." The words struck Laura like a physical blow, and the room seemed to spin around her. She could barely process what she was hearing. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor as her legs gave way beneath her. Her friends rushed to her side, their faces mirrors of her shock and pain. Through her tears, Laura could see the concern and confusion in the eyes of her loved ones. Summoning every ounce of strength, she stood up, her knees wobbling, and addressed the room. "Everyone, I am so sorry," she began, her voice trembling but clear. "There will be no wedding today. Marcus has left me for another woman. He's gone, and he's not coming back." A collective gasp filled the room, followed by a stunned silence. Laura's mother rushed to her side, enveloping her in a warm embrace, while her father's face turned a shade of angry red. The guests, unsure of what to do, began to murmur amongst themselves. "Please take your gifts back," Laura continued, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry for any inconvenience. You're all free to go." The room erupted in a flurry of activity as guests gathered their belongings, their faces a mixture of pity and disbelief. Marcus's family, equally shocked and ashamed, approached Laura with apologies and tears, but she could barely register their words. Her world had shattered, and all she could feel was an overwhelming sense of betrayal and sorrow. As the last guest left, Laura stood alone in the empty chapel, the silence pressing down on her like a weight. Still in her wedding dress, she walked to the altar and sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "How could you, Marcus?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to me?" Her family gathered around her, their arms offering the only comfort they could in such a moment. "We're here for you, Laura," her father said gently, his voice thick with emotion. "We'll get through this together." Laura nodded, though her heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. As she left the chapel, supported by her family, she vowed to herself that she would survive this. Somehow, she would find the strength to move forward, even if the path ahead seemed impossibly dark and uncertain. And so, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, Laura faced a new beginning filled with pain and heartache. But amidst the tears and shattered dreams, a flicker of resilience began to grow, whispering of a future that, though different from what she had envisioned, might still hold hope and light. In the weeks that followed the disastrous non-wedding, Laura's life descended into a blur of heartache and numbness. Each day felt like a mountain to climb, her steps heavy with sorrow. She moved through her days like a ghost. The vibrant woman she once was now a shadow of grief. Her family, steadfast and loving, surrounded her with a fortress of support. Her mother, always nearby, offered gentle words and silent hugs. Her father, his stern facade softened by his daughter's pain, took on the practicalities of life, shielding her from the outside world. Laura's friends rallied around her, their loyalty unwavering as they attempted to mend her shattered heart. Yet, despite the outpouring of love, Laura struggled to find her footing. Nights were the hardest, her mind a relentless replay of Marcus's betrayal. She would lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, the silence of the night amplifying her loneliness. Tears flowed freely, each drop a testament to her broken dreams. Realizing that she needed more than just emotional support, Laura's parents gently encouraged her to seek professional help. Reluctant at first, she eventually agreed, knowing deep down that she needed a way to navigate the storm of emotions inside her. She began seeing a compassionate therapist named Dr. Mitchell, whose soothing voice and understanding eyes became a lifeline. Dr. Mitchell helped Laura unpack the layers of her grief, guiding her through the labyrinth of pain and betrayal. With each session, Laura started to reclaim pieces of herself, small fragments that had been buried under the weight of her heartache. She learned to face her pain head-on, to acknowledge it, and then to let it go, bit by bit. Simultaneously, Laura sought solace in physical activity. She started running, her feet pounding the pavement in rhythm with her racing thoughts. The physical exertion became a form of release, each step a small victory over her despair. The fresh air and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat helped clear her mind, if only for a little while. Laura also found refuge in the gym, where the weights and machines became tools for rebuilding not just her strength, but her spirit. Each repetition, each drop of sweat, was a step toward reclaiming her power. She pushed herself hard, channeling her pain into a fierce determination to emerge stronger than before. Her evenings were filled with books and studies, immersing herself in learning as a way to distract her mind and enrich her soul. She enrolled in courses, picking up skills that she had once only dreamed of mastering. The pursuit of knowledge became a beacon of hope, a promise of a brighter future. Months passed, and slowly but surely, Laura began to feel the stirrings of a new life within her. Her heart, though still scarred, started to beat with a rhythm of hope and resilience. The laughter of her friends, the warmth of her family, and the quiet strength she found within herself began to mend the pieces of her broken heart. One day, as she sat by her window, the sunlight casting a golden glow on her face, Laura realized that she had come a long way from the dark days following the wedding. She was not completely healed, but she was on her way. She could feel it in the way she smiled at small joys, in the way she looked forward to new challenges, and in the way she dared to dream again. Laura knew she had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of excitement about the journey. She was stronger than she had ever imagined, and with each passing day, she was rediscovering the woman she was meant to be. As Laura slowly rebuilt her life, a new chapter began to unfold. She secured a job at a reputable company, her intelligence and resilience shining through in her work. The days were busy, filled with tasks that demanded her focus and dedication. It was a welcome distraction, allowing her to channel her energy into something constructive. In the office, Laura's professionalism and kindness did not go unnoticed. Her colleagues admired her quiet strength, and she soon became a valued member of the team. Among them was Adrian, the company's owner, a man of wealth and influence, yet surprisingly humble and grounded. He had a keen eye for talent and a deep respect for hard work, traits that drew him to Laura. Adrian, with his dark hair and piercing blue eyes, was not just any employer. He treated everyone with a sense of fairness and compassion that was rare in their world. Despite his high social standing, he never looked down on anyone. Laura admired this about him, finding comfort in his respectful demeanor. One day, as Laura was diligently working on a project, Adrian approached her desk. "Laura," he said with a warm smile, "your dedication is truly inspiring. Would you like to join me for lunch today? I'd love to hear more about your ideas for the upcoming project." Laura hesitated, her heart beating a little faster. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially from someone like Adrian, but his genuine interest and kind eyes put her at ease. "I'd love to," she replied, a shy smile creeping onto her face. Lunch with Adrian became a turning point. They shared stories, and Laura found herself opening up about her passions and dreams. Adrian listened intently, his respect for her growing with every word. Over the following weeks, they began to spend more time together, their conversations flowing effortlessly. Adrian's admiration for Laura was clear, but he never pressured her, always respectful of her boundaries. One evening, after a particularly long day, Adrian invited Laura to dinner at his home. It was a beautiful, elegant place, filled with warmth and light. As they sat in his cozy dining room, Adrian spoke softly. "Laura, I've come to care for you deeply. I admire your strength, your kindness, and your determination. Would you consider giving us a chance? I'd love to get to know you better, to be a part of your life." Laura was touched by his sincerity. Her heart, still cautious from past wounds, felt a flicker of hope. "Adrian, I appreciate your honesty and kindness. I've been through a lot, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for a relationship just yet. But I'd like to try. You've shown me that not all men are the same, and I want to see where this could lead." Adrian smiled, a look of relief and joy in his eyes. "Thank you, Laura. I promise to respect your pace and be patient. I'm here for you, whatever you need." Their relationship blossomed slowly and naturally. Adrian's family, much like Adrian himself, welcomed Laura with open arms. They saw the goodness in her, the strength that had carried her through her darkest days. Laura, in turn, found herself embracing a new kind of happiness, one built on mutual respect and genuine affection. With each passing day, Laura's confidence grew. She began to trust again, to believe in the possibility of a future filled with love and joy. Adrian stood by her side, his unwavering support a constant source of strength. Together, they navigated the ups and downs, building a bond that was both tender and resilient. In Adrian, Laura found not just a partner, but a friend, a confidant, and a source of unending support. The shadows of her past still lingered, but they were no longer the defining force in her life. With Adrian, she felt safe, cherished, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. This new beginning was not just about finding love again. It was about rediscovering herself, about healing and growing. Laura knew that the journey was far from over, but with Adrian by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. And for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright and full of promise. As the months passed, Adrian and Laura's bond grew stronger. Their moments together were filled with laughter, deep conversations, and a growing sense of intimacy. Adrian's patience and understanding allowed Laura to feel safe, and she began to open her heart more fully to him. One crisp autumn evening, Adrian invited Laura to dinner at a quaint little restaurant nestled by the river. The gentle murmur of the water, the soft glow of lanterns, and the cool breeze created a perfect backdrop for what would be a memorable night. Laura, dressed in a simple yet elegant dress, felt a mix of anticipation and tranquility as she sat across from Adrian, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the candlelight. After the meal, as they walked along the riverbank, Adrian turned to Laura, his expression earnest. "Laura, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice tinged with a vulnerability she had rarely seen in him. Laura stopped, looking up at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "What is it, Adrian?" He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I've wanted to tell you this for a while now, but I needed to find the right moment. Laura, I've fallen in love with you. From the moment I saw you, I knew there was something special about you. Your strength, your kindness, your resilience, they've all drawn me to you in ways I can't fully explain." Laura's heart fluttered at his words. She felt a warmth spread through her, mingled with a hint of fear. "Adrian," she whispered, "I don't know what to say. This is all so sudden." Adrian reached out, gently taking her hands in his. "I understand. I know you've been through so much, and I don't want to rush you or make you feel pressured. I just wanted you to know how I feel. I care for you deeply, Laura, and I'm willing to wait for as long as it takes. I just want to be here for you, by your side." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes, touched by the sincerity and depth of Adrian's confession. She had been guarded for so long, afraid to let someone in, but here was a man who saw her, who valued her, who loved her despite her scars. "Adrian, I've grown to care for you too," she said, her voice trembling. "You've shown me what real love and respect look like, and I'm so grateful for that. I want to give us a chance. I want to see where this can go." Adrian's face lit up with a radiant smile, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Thank you, Laura. You have no idea how much this means to me." They embraced, standing by the river, the world around them fading into the background. In that moment, Laura felt a profound sense of peace and hope. She knew the road ahead would not be without challenges, but with Adrian by her side, she felt stronger and more ready than ever to face whatever came their way. Their relationship deepened, built on a foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and a shared vision of the future. Laura found herself slowly letting go of the past, her trust in Adrian growing with each passing day. Together, they navigated the complexities of their lives, finding solace and strength in each other's presence. Adrian's confession marked the beginning of a beautiful chapter in their lives, one filled with love, promise, and the unshakable belief that together, they could overcome anything. For Laura, this was not just a new beginning, but a reaffirmation that love, when true and patient, had the power to heal, to transform, and to illuminate even the darkest corners of the heart. 2 years passed, and Laura and Adrian's relationship blossomed into something truly special. They became inseparable, their bond growing stronger with each shared moment, every challenge faced together, and each dream they pursued side by side. Laura found herself in a place she never thought she would be again, content, loved, and hopeful for the future. On a warm summer evening, Adrian decided it was time to take their relationship to the next level. He had planned everything meticulously, wanting this moment to be perfect. He invited Laura to his family estate, where the garden was transformed into a magical haven with twinkling fairy lights, fragrant flowers, and a softly playing string quartet. As they walked through the garden, Laura couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. The atmosphere was enchanting, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming roses and the gentle hum of the night. Adrian led her to a beautifully decorated gazebo, where a small table was set for two, candles flickering in the twilight. "Adrian, this is amazing," Laura said, her eyes wide with delight. "What's the occasion?" Adrian smiled, his heart pounding with anticipation. "Laura, you've brought so much joy and light into my life. Every day with you is a blessing, and I can't imagine my life without you. There's something I want to ask you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Laura's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring, its facets catching the candlelight and sparkling brilliantly. Adrian got down on one knee, his eyes never leaving hers. "Laura, from the moment I met you, I knew you were someone special. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved, to face life's challenges with courage and grace. Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my best friend, my love for the rest of our lives?" Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she looked at Adrian, her heart overflowing with emotion. This moment, this man, this love, it was everything she had ever hoped for and more. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here, to this beautiful, transformative moment. "Yes, Adrian," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." Adrian's face lit up with pure joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. He stood, pulling her into his arms, their embrace filled with a profound sense of love and promise. The music swelled around them, the world seeming to hold its breath in celebration of their union. As they shared their first kiss as an engaged couple, Laura felt a wave of peace and happiness wash over her. She knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together, a journey that would be filled with love, laughter, and a shared commitment to facing whatever life brought their way. The proposal was not just a declaration of love, but a testament to the strength and resilience of their bond. It was a promise of a future built on trust, understanding, and unwavering support for one another. And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the night and the warmth of Adrian's love, Laura knew that she had found her forever. As Laura and Adrian basked in the joy of their engagement, there was a moment of introspection that Adrian felt compelled to share. He wanted Laura to understand that their bond was forged not just from their present happiness, but from the shared scars of their pasts. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace in Adrian's family estate, Laura noticed a shift in Adrian's demeanor. His usually cheerful expression turned somber, and she knew he was ready to open up about something deeply personal. "Laura," Adrian began, his voice soft and reflective, "there's something I've been wanting to tell you. It's about my past, something that shaped me into the person I am today." Laura reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You can tell me anything, Adrian. I'm here for you." He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. 3 years before I met you, I was in love with a woman named Emily. We were engaged, and I thought she was the one I'd spend my life with. But on the day of our wedding, she left me at the altar. She ran away with her ex-boyfriend, leaving me humiliated and heartbroken. Laura's eyes filled with empathy as she listened. She knew all too well the pain of being abandoned by someone she loved. "I was devastated," Adrian continued, his voice tinged with lingering sadness. "I fell into a deep depression, questioning everything about myself and my worth. It took me a long time to rebuild my life, to find the strength to move on. My family was my anchor during those dark times, just as your family was for you." He paused, looking deeply into Laura's eyes. "When I met you, I saw in you the same resilience and strength that I had to find in myself. It drew me to you, made me fall in love with you. And now, knowing your story, I feel an even deeper connection to you." Laura squeezed his hand, her heart aching for the pain he had endured. "Adrian, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But I'm grateful too, because it brought you to me, and it brought me to you. Our shared pain has made us stronger, and it's made our love all the more precious." Adrian nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. "You're right. Our pasts, as painful as they were, have led us to this beautiful present. And I promise you, Laura, I will spend every day of my life making sure you never feel that kind of pain again." They held each other close, their hearts beating in unison. In that embrace, they found solace in their shared experiences, knowing that their love was built on a foundation of mutual understanding and compassion. As the fire crackled beside them, casting a warm glow over their faces, Laura and Adrian felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. They had both been through the depths of despair, but together they had risen above it. Their love was a testament to their resilience, and they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them hand in hand. Their shared pain had not only brought them closer, but had also given them a profound appreciation for the love they now cherished. And as they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, they felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had led them to this moment of true connection and unwavering love. Months of meticulous planning and joyful anticipation culminated in a day that neither Laura nor Adrian would ever forget. The sun cast a golden glow over the lush gardens of Adrian's family estate, where rows of elegant chairs adorned with delicate flowers awaited the arrival of the guests. The air was filled with the scent of roses and the soft hum of a string quartet, setting the stage for a wedding that promised to be nothing short of magical. As the guests arrived, a sense of excitement and love filled the air. Friends and family, dressed in their finest attire, mingled and shared stories, their laughter mingling with the gentle melodies that floated through the garden. Every detail had been carefully considered, every flower petal and ribbon placed with love and intention. In a nearby room, Laura stood before a mirror, her heart fluttering with a mix of nerves and overwhelming joy. Her wedding gown, a creation of flowing silk and lace, fit her perfectly, making her look like a princess from a fairy tale. Her mother adjusted her veil, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "You look absolutely stunning, my darling," her mother whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Laura turned to face her mother, her own eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, Mom. I'm so grateful to have you here with me today." Meanwhile, in another part of the estate, Adrian was surrounded by his groomsmen, who offered him words of encouragement and shared in his excitement. Dressed in a classic black tuxedo, he exuded confidence and happiness. Yet, there was a softness in his eyes, a reflection of the deep love he held for Laura. As the time for the ceremony drew near, the guests took their seats, and the music shifted to a romantic melody. Adrian stood at the altar, his heart pounding with anticipation. The moment he had dreamed of for so long was finally here. Then, the music swelled, and all eyes turned to the end of the aisle. Laura appeared, her arm linked with her father's, her face radiant with joy. Each step she took was filled with meaning, each step bringing her closer to the man who had captured her heart and soul. Adrian's breath caught in his throat as he watched Laura approach. She was more beautiful than he had ever imagined, and in that moment, he felt a surge of love so powerful that it brought tears to his eyes. When Laura reached the altar, her father gently placed a hand in Adrian's, and the two of them stood together, facing each other, their eyes locked in an unspoken promise of forever. The officiant began to speak, his words weaving a tapestry of love, commitment, and the journey that had brought Laura and Adrian to this moment. As they exchanged their vows, their voices trembled with emotion, each word a testament to their deep love and unwavering commitment to one another. "I promise to love you, support you, and stand by your side through all of life's challenges," Adrian vowed, his eyes never leaving Laura's. "And I promise to cherish you, to be your partner in all things, and to love you more each day," Laura responded, her voice filled with sincerity and love. With the exchange of rings, a symbol of their eternal bond, and a kiss that sealed their vows, Laura and Adrian became husband and wife. The guests erupted in applause, their cheers and well wishes filling the air. The celebration that followed was a joyous affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. Laura and Adrian moved through the crowd, their hands entwined, basking in the love and happiness that surrounded them. As the night drew to a close, Laura and Adrian stole a quiet moment alone under the starlit sky. They stood hand in hand, gazing up at the twinkling stars, feeling the weight of their journey and the promise of their future. "This is just the beginning," Adrian whispered, his voice filled with wonder and gratitude. Laura nodded, her heart full. "Yes, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the night and the warmth of their love, Laura and Adrian knew that they had found something truly special. Their wedding day was not just a celebration of their love, but a testament to the strength, resilience, and unwavering commitment that had brought them together. And as they looked into each other's eyes, they knew that they were ready to face whatever the future held, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever. Meanwhile, in a different state, Marcus and Bianca's fairy tale began to unravel. Their once passionate relationship, built on deception and guilt, started showing cracks as the reality of their choices set in. The glamorous life they had envisioned together was marred by unspoken regrets and unfulfilled promises. Marcus, who had left everything behind for Bianca, found himself increasingly disillusioned. The sparkle in Bianca's eyes that had once captivated him was now replaced by a distant and troubled look. Their once joyful conversations had turned into heated arguments, and the love they had shared seemed to slip through their fingers like sand. One stormy evening, as rain pelted against the windows of their upscale apartment, a knock at the door disrupted the tense silence between them. Marcus opened the door to find a man standing there, drenched and defiant. It was Simon, a figure from Bianca's past that she had never fully disclosed to Marcus. Bianca's face went pale when she saw Simon, and a flurry of emotions played across her features: fear, regret, and a flicker of old affection. "Simon, what are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Simon stepped into the room, his gaze fixed on Bianca. "I've come for my son," he declared, his voice filled with a mixture of determination and sorrow. Marcus looked from Simon to Bianca, confusion and anger boiling inside him. "What is he talking about, Bianca?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Bianca swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "Marcus, Simon cut her off. "She's been lying to you, Marcus. The boy you've been raising isn't yours. He's my son. Bianca and I were together long before you came into the picture." The room fell silent as Marcus tried to process the bombshell that had just been dropped. He turned to Bianca, his voice a whisper of betrayal. "Is this true?" Tears welled up in Bianca's eyes, and she nodded, her voice barely audible. "Yes, Marcus. It's true. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could make it work, but—" Marcus didn't let her finish. The world he had sacrificed everything for came crashing down around him. "You've deceived me, Bianca. I left Laura at the altar for you. I gave up everything, and now you tell me it was all a lie." Simon, sensing the depth of Marcus's pain, softened his tone. "I never wanted this to happen, Marcus. But my son deserves to know his real father." With those words, the final thread of Marcus's old life snapped. The love that had driven him to betray Laura now felt like a chain that had bound him to a life of lies. He turned to Bianca one last time, his voice filled with a sorrow deeper than any he had known. "I can't do this anymore, Bianca. I'm leaving." He packed his bags, his movements mechanical as if in a trance. Bianca watched, her tears falling freely now, but she didn't try to stop him. She knew it was too late. As Marcus walked out the door, he glanced back at the boy he had thought was his son. The child looked back with innocent eyes, unaware of the storm raging around him. "I hope you have a good life," Marcus whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. With that, he closed the door on the life he had built on lies and walked out into the rain, determined to find some semblance of redemption. Leaving the apartment behind, Marcus felt the weight of his choices bearing down on him. He knew he had to return to his home state, face the consequences of his actions, and seek forgiveness from the one person he had wronged the most, Laura. His journey home was not just a return to a place, but a quest for atonement, a desperate hope that somewhere in the ruins of his past, he could find a way to rebuild his life. And so, with a heavy heart and a glimmer of hope, Marcus boarded a plane, leaving behind the shattered remnants of his life with Bianca and heading back to where it all began. He was a man stripped of pretense, seeking the one thing he had lost along the way, his own redemption. Marcus's return to his home state was marked by a sense of trepidation. The plane touched down, and as he stepped into the familiar yet distant surroundings, a flood of memories washed over him. The guilt and regret weighed heavily on his shoulders, making each step feel like a penance. He knew that seeking forgiveness from Laura would be the hardest part of his journey. After days of wandering through old haunts and gathering the courage to face the past, Marcus found himself standing before a grand mansion. The address, given to him by a reluctant friend, confirmed that Laura had moved on and found a new life, far removed from the pain he had caused her. With a heart pounding in his chest, Marcus approached the front door and knocked, the sound echoing through the quiet evening. Moments later, the door opened, and there stood Laura, radiant and serene, her hand gently resting on her pregnant belly. Her eyes widened in surprise as she recognized the face from her past. "Marcus," she said, her voice a mixture of shock and curiosity. "It's been a long time." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he fell to his knees, his voice choked with emotion. "Laura, my love, I came to ask for your forgiveness and a chance to start over. I made a terrible mistake, and I've paid dearly for it. Please, give me a chance to make things right." Laura, with a gentle and kind expression, placed a hand on his shoulder and helped him stand. "Marcus, a lot has changed since you left. I'm married now and expecting a child. My life has moved on." Marcus's eyes fell to her rounded belly, and a deep sadness filled his heart. "You're pregnant," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Laura nodded, her gaze steady and compassionate. "Yes, I am. I found happiness and love with someone who truly cares for me." The reality of her words hit Marcus like a tidal wave. He realized that the life he had hoped to rebuild with Laura was no longer possible. He had lost her, not just to another man but to a new life, a life where he no longer had a place. "And your child with Bianca?" Laura asked gently, bringing Marcus back to the present. Marcus shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "The child wasn't mine. It was all a scheme, a lie. I left everything for her, and it was all a lie." Laura's expression softened with understanding and pity. "I'm sorry for what you've been through, Marcus, but I've forgiven you a long time ago. I don't hold any resentment towards you. You need to forgive yourself and move on." Marcus, still on his knees, looked up at her with pleading eyes. "Laura, please, come back to me. I still love you. I'll do anything to make it right, even raise this child as my own. Just give me another chance." Laura sighed, a look of deep sorrow and compassion on her face. "Marcus, I can't go back to the past. I've found peace and happiness now, and I can't jeopardize that. I wish you the best and hope you find your own path to redemption. But it's not with me." She helped him stand, her touch gentle but firm, a clear sign that her decision was final. "Please don't come back here, Marcus. My husband wouldn't appreciate my ex-fiancée showing up at our doorstep." With those words, she closed the door gently, leaving Marcus standing alone, the weight of his actions crushing him. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, the reality of his loss settling deep within him. He remembered the words Laura had spoken on the day he left with Bianca, about life eventually demanding a price for his betrayal. And now, that price had been paid in full. As he walked away from the mansion, Marcus felt a profound emptiness. He knew he had to find a new path, a way to rebuild his life from the ashes of his past mistakes. The journey would be long and arduous, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope that redemption was possible, even if it meant starting from nothing. As Laura's door closed softly behind her, Marcus stood alone on the doorstep, the cold reality of his choices settling heavily on his shoulders. He took a deep breath and walked away, each step feeling like a farewell to the past he had once cherished. His heart ached with regret, but within that pain, a seed of resolve began to sprout. Back in the mansion, Laura leaned against the door, a mix of sadness and relief washing over her. She had faced her past and closed that chapter with compassion and grace. Now, Her focus was entirely on the future she was building with Adrian and their soon-to-arrive child. The months passed quickly, filled with the joyous preparations for the new life Laura was bringing into the world. Adrian stood by her side, his love and support unwavering. On a bright spring morning, their son was born, bringing a profound sense of completeness to their lives. Surrounded by family and friends, Laura and Adrian felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the happiness they had found together. Meanwhile, Marcus wandered through the remnants of his old life, seeking to rebuild and find peace. He took a job in a small town far from his past, working diligently and earning the respect of those around him. Though the loneliness lingered, he found solace in the simplicity of his new routine and the small acts of kindness he offered to others. As the years went by, Marcus slowly healed. He volunteered at shelters and mentored troubled youth, sharing his story as a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. Through these efforts, he found a renewed sense of purpose and a chance to atone for his past mistakes. Laura and Adrian's lives flourished. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the pitter-patter of tiny feet. Their son, James, grew up surrounded by the warmth of a family that valued kindness, honesty, and resilience. Laura often thought of Marcus, hoping he had found his own path to peace and redemption. One day, as she was putting James to bed, he asked, "Mom, do you ever think about the people you knew before Dad?" Laura smiled, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Sometimes, sweetie. Everyone we meet shapes who we are, and some teach us important lessons." James looked thoughtful. "Like how Grandpa says we should always be kind, even when it's hard?" "Yes, exactly like that," Laura replied, her heart swelling with pride. "Kindness and forgiveness are the strongest things we can offer, to ourselves and others." Far away, Marcus stood by a riverbank, watching the sun set in a blaze of colors. He had found a quiet contentment in his new life, surrounded by people who appreciated him for who he had become, not who he had been. He often thought of Laura, grateful for the forgiveness she had extended and the lesson it had taught him about the enduring power of love and redemption. As the years continued to pass, the paths of Laura, Adrian, and Marcus remained separate but intertwined through the invisible threads of their shared history. Each had found their way forward, carrying the scars and the strength of their experiences. In the end, the story of Marcus and Laura was not just one of betrayal and heartbreak, but of growth, forgiveness, and the unyielding belief that even the deepest wounds can heal with time and compassion. Their journeys, though different, had led them both to a place of peace and fulfillment, proving that the human spirit is capable of extraordinary resilience and grace.